ça. Ouais, ouais, tu vois. Ça. Il détecte pas. Ah non. Amir, my laptop is the microphone. I cannot connect to use this microphone by Zoom. Yeah, by Zoom it is. How many do we have on Zoom?
So the Zoom is only the online speakers. Zoom is only online speakers. The live stream, no, the live stream is open, but the live stream. And
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, friends, both those who are here in person and those colleagues who have joined online. On behalf of the World Meteorological Organization, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this important discussion on empowering women, children, and indigenous peoples through inclusive early warning systems and climate services. My name is Amir Delju, Senior Scientific Officer in the Climate Services Division of WMO. I'll moderate this event for 2 hours. Colleagues, this session speaks directly to WMO's vision, ensuring that climate information and early warnings serve everyone, leaving no one behind. Around the world, women and children are often the most affected by floods, droughts, and storms, yet they are also key through often unrecognized stakeholders in ensuring inclusive and sustainable community preparedness, anticipatory action, and adaptation. Today's dialogue will first showcase inclusive approaches that make early warning systems and climate services more accessible, relevant, and actionable for all. Second, share practical examples from the Pacific, Africa, and Asia, where co-designed early warning systems and climate services are strengthening local resilience. And third, explore how gender-responsive, child-centered, and indigenous knowledge-based services, together with support to put into practice, contribute to equitable implementation of the Paris Agreement. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes I have. For those joining online, please use the chat or question and answer function to post your questions at any time. My colleagues will monitor and we will respond. For those colleagues in the pavilion in person, please raise your hand during the question and answer session. A microphone will be brought to you. The session is being live streamed on YouTube, so we kindly ask all speakers to keep to their allotted times to maintain a smooth flow. I would also like to acknowledge our partners, Save the Children, COPE Academy, which stands for Capabilities, Opportunities, Places, and Engagement, the Women's Environment Program, the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, SPREP, and for their leadership and collaboration in making this event possible. So let us use the next 2 hours to listen, exchange, and learn how inclusive climate services can turn data into dialogue and dialogue into action. Thank you. And with that, it is my pleasure to open the session and invite our first panelists.
Hello, can I go ahead?
1 second, Madam Jennifer Stanzel, Chief of Staffing Diversity, UN Secretariat, New York. So you are online, please, floor is you can start. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And sorry for jumping in straight away. I'm very excited and honored to be here today from the UN Secretariat at the Office of Global Human Resources in New York. And my sincere thanks to WMO and all the partners for convening this important dialogue. As an HR leader and as a mother of two young girls, this discussion is both professional and deeply personal. And the way we design and deliver climate services today will shape my children's future and the future of millions of children and communities already living with escalating climate risks. And I'm reminded about today's topic, especially focusing on women, children, and Indigenous communities, that it's very similar to the work we do here in HR, where there's a focus on people, diversity, equality, and dignity. Where I work in the UN Secretariat, we have about 34,000 colleagues working from over 190 nationalities, 45% women, with many different backgrounds, expertise, and identities. And to fulfill the UN's vast and urgent mandate, we rely on a truly global workforce, from climate scientists to gender experts and political and humanitarian professionals, and many more. And we know that having a diverse and highly skilled workforce builds trusts, strengthens decision-making, and ensures mandates are delivered more effectively. And in the UN, we continue to aspire for a workforce that truly reflects the communities we serve, and that requires sustained effort. However, diversity only delivers impact when every voice is heard and valued. In HR and leadership, our responsibility is to build workplaces and spaces grounded in dignity, equality, and respect. So colleagues with different identities, expertise, and lived experience can fully contribute. This also means acknowledging and addressing structural and systemic barriers that prevent people from participating and thriving. These principles are firmly grounded in the UN Charter, which states the dignity and worth of the human person and the equal rights of women and men and of nations large and small. I think this is a really important one to remember. These principles are also reflected in some of the UN workforce diversity strategies that we have on gender equality, disability and youth inclusion, combating racism, geographical representation. And these strategies are aimed at supporting our workforce and strengthening our mandate delivery. Each strategy has indicators and monitoring frameworks, and we're to really ensure meaningful implementation. And we're making progress, but yet there's much more work to be done to meet our full ambitions. And similarly, for early warning system and climate services to be truly inclusive, we must step beyond our silos and our comfort zones with humility and courage. Within the UN, across disciplines, and how we partner with communities and everyone else in the ecosystem. At the heart of climate action is people. It not just requires strong science, but it also requires us to listen deeply to lived experiences and the leadership and resilience of women, children, and Indigenous people. This is why today's dialogue matters. By learning from one another and recognizing where we must do better, we can take practical steps to ensure no one is left behind. Let us honor the promise of the UN Charter by stepping beyond our silos, working with humility and courage, and helping build a safer, fairer, and more resilient world for this and future generations. I'm looking forward to learning from today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Stansel, keeping the time and for your precious remarks. Now, I would like to invite Madam Shirley Harper, who has joined us online. She's Vice Chair of Working Group 1 of IPCC. Madam Harper, the floor is for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thanks so much to everyone who's joining this really important session on inclusive early warning systems and climate services, which to me, I really think sits at the heart of credible, relevant, and just climate change assessment. So for the IPCC, who's tasked with assessing the evidence on climate change, it really highlights the importance of the co-production of knowledge. And this is reflected in IPCC reports. So for example, in the last IPCC cycle in AR6, the message was really clear across all of the different AR6 report products that co-producing knowledge isn't optional, it's actually really essential. It's how we deepen our understanding of climate change, it's how we strengthen our responses to climate change, and it's how we design governance systems or actions that actually work for the people who they're meant to serve. So when we bring together scientific expertise, local knowledge, Indigenous knowledge systems, and practitioners' experience and knowledge, we generate insights that none of these knowledge systems can produce on their own. So in the next assessment cycle in AR7, the IPCC is going to continue to center the importance of knowledge co-production. So in every single report, that includes the special report on cities, as well as the Working Group 1, Working Group 2, and Working Group 3 reports, mentions of knowledge co-production directly is included in all of the outlines that have been approved by governments. So just to give you one example, in Working Group 1, Chapter 10 explicitly instructs authors to consider the co-production of knowledge for early warning systems and for climate services. And that's just one example from one chapter, but you'll see this included across all of the report outlines, where authors are being asked to assess, elevate, and also integrate co-produced knowledge far more intentionally than ever before. But of course, it's not enough for IPCC to just talk about co-production. We know that we need to model that in how we work. And in this cycle, we're taking gender, equity, diversity, and inclusivity very seriously, not just as an add-on, but really as the foundation for high-quality assessment. So, for example, we've already convened an expert meeting on gender diversity, equity, and inclusion, which brought together an extraordinary range of voices. And early next year, we're going to host a dedicated workshop on diverse knowledge systems that's designed to support authors in grounding gender, diversity, equity, and inclusivity principles, both in the content of their chapters, but also in terms of how they work together as a writing team. And as an example from my own perspective, I think a major part of this work in the IPCC is its enhanced commitment to Indigenous inclusion in this cycle. So, for example, for the first time in IPCC history, every single report will have Indigenous lead authors. It's long overdue, but it's a really important step forward. And Indigenous peoples and Indigenous knowledge systems appear in the outlines in every single report this cycle as well. We know that this is a really necessary step towards ensuring that our assessment reports reflect the realities, innovations, and leadership of Indigenous peoples from around the world. And of course, we still have a long way to go, and we know that co-production is not a box that we tick off. It's really a continuous learning practice. And so we're going to have to keep learning, keep listening, and keep adjusting in how we work so that we can continue striving to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Harper. Now I have the pleasure of inviting Madam Moa Cortobius, who is attending in person in our pavilion. Please come to the panel. And she's from Save the Children. Please.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure being here with you today. Distinguished co-panelists, distinguished public, distinguished colleagues. More than opening remarks, I have the great pleasure to actually announce here at COP30 in Belém a strategic partnership between the World Meteorological Organization and Save the Children. We have signed a memorandum of understanding that brings together the global lead on weather and climate and water information services and the world's largest independent child rights organization, with a shared commitment to placing children and young people at the center of weather and climate services and anticipatory action and climate adaptation. We know that around the world, children's lives are increasingly disrupted by floods, cyclones, extreme heat, and droughts. These hazards interrupt schooling, threaten their health and their basic living conditions. The climate crisis is indeed a child rights crisis, especially for girls and Indigenous peoples and those children living in fragile contexts. Here in Latin America, for example, where we celebrate the COP this year, 9 in 10 children are facing at least 2 climate hazards at the same time. And around the globe, it's estimated that children born in 2020 will experience between 2 and 7 more extreme weather events in comparison to their grandparents. And this includes heat waves, flooding, droughts, and wildfires. Yet, when we look at the early warning systems and the climate and weather services, information services present today, their needs and the vulnerabilities are often completely invisible. So this MOU, which we're extremely excited and happy to establish and to share with the world, creates a framework to jointly develop climate services that are accessible, relevant, and actionable for children, families, communities, and local and national actors at all levels. The key collaboration areas where we will be joining hands is promoting child-centered early warning systems by tailoring climate information and warning systems for sectors essential to children, but often overlooked, such as, for example, education, health, protection, water and sanitation, and food security. We will also strengthen child and youth engagement by enabling them to participate, monitoring, communicating, and responding to climate risks. Jointly, we will also foster localization by ensuring that climate information and early warnings reach communities, schools, households in format they can use to protect themselves. And finally, we will support climate resilient education by integrating climate and weather services into school preparedness, curricula, and the broader resilience agenda. Together, the WMO and Save the Children would document and share lessons learned on child-centered climate services. We will advocate for the integration of education and youth participation in national climate policies, and of course, link local innovations to global spaces, including the WMO Youth Action Plan and the wider UNFCCC processes. Announcing this MOU here at the COP30, rooted in the Amazon, where the COP focused on climate justice, reminds us that protecting children is at the heart for a safe and prosperous future for all. Through this MOU, WMO and Save the Children commit to advancing early warning systems, climate services that truly reach the last mile and the last child. We very much look forward to collaborating with children, governments, donors, academia, private sector, other civil society organizations, and communities to translate this commitment into tangible action across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Kotobius. In the end of this segment, we have an introductory video that I would like to request my colleagues or the owner of the video to play it. Thank you.
আমরা যখন 91-তে ছিলাম তখন আমরা পাহাড়ের কাছেই ছিলাম, তখন আমাদের বাসা বাড়ি ভেঙে গেছে, অনেক ক্ষয়ক্ষতি হয়েছে। কোনো সাহায্য তো আমরা পাই না, ওইটা আর কি। আর এরকম বেশি দিনে কাজকর্ম থাকে না, আমরা খুবই অসহায়, এই জন্য আমরা এইসব জায়গায় থাকতে হয়, আমরা বড় জায়গায় থাকতে পারি না। ভয় তো আছে, ভয় তো বৃষ্টি বাদলের দিন রাত্রে ঘুম যায় না।
দেশের জনগণ সবাই থাকিবে সচেতন মোকাবেলায় এসো মেট ক্লাবের কুলে দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলায় এসো মেট ক্লাবের কুলে
যদি আমাদের শিশুরা এই আবহাওয়া এবং জলবায়ু সম্বন্ধে ধারণা লাভ করে তাহলে আমাদের পরবর্তী জেনারেশন দুর্যোগ সহনশীল হওয়ার একটা সম্ভাবনা সৃষ্টি হবে। এই জন্য আমরা আর্লি ওয়ার্নিংকে সকলের দোরগোড়ায় পৌঁছে দেওয়ার জন্য আমরা ম্যাট ক্লাব গঠনের উদ্যোগ নিয়েছি।
ওয়েদার রেডি এবং ক্লাইমেট স্মার্ট নেশন তৈরির জন্য আসলে কেবল প্রযুক্তি এবং প্রস্তুতি যথেষ্ট নয়। এজন্য আসলে আমাদের কিছু অভ্যাসগত এবং চর্চাগত পরিবর্তন দরকার এবং সেই লক্ষ্য নিয়ে আসলে আমাদের মেট ক্লাবের যাত্রা শুরু হয়েছে।
পুরো বার্তাগুলো যাতে চাইল্ড সেন্ট্রিক হয় তার জন্য আসলে এই উদ্ভাবনামূলক প্রকল্প। আমরা এর মাধ্যমে শিশুদেরকে দুর্যোগ প্রস্তুতিতে তাদের দক্ষতা তৈরি করা এবং এর মাধ্যমে তারা তাদের পরিবার এবং তাদের সমাজ এবং তাদের আশেপাশের জনগোষ্ঠীকে তারা যাতে সচেতন করতে পারে।
আপনারা জানেন যে সেভ দ্য চিলড্রেন যে কোনো কার্যক্রম যখন করে তখন শিশুদের সম্পৃক্ত করে কাজ করে। এটি হচ্ছে শিশু সম্পৃক্তকরণ একটি অন্যতম উদ্যোগ এবং শিশুরা এখানে প্ল্যানিং থেকে শুরু করে বাস্তবায়ন পর্যন্ত শিশুরা সম্পৃক্ত আছে।
আমরা জানি যে শিশুরা মোট জনসংখ্যার একটা বড় অংশ প্রতিনিধিত্ব করে, সুতরাং তাদেরকে যদি আমরা আবহাওয়ার বার্তা বিষয়গুলোকে বোঝা এবং সে অনুযায়ী কাজ করার ক্ষেত্রে সাথে নিয়ে আসতে পারি তাহলে আমাদের একটা বড় ধরনের ঝুঁকি, যেই ঝুঁকিটা আসলে আমাদের দুর্যোগের ক্ষয়ক্ষতি কমাতে সাহায্য করবে, সেই পূর্ব উপস্থিতিমূলক কর্মকাণ্ডে সাহায্য করবে।
তো ওই জায়গাটা দিয়ে আমরা আসলে মেট ক্লাবকে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করি, যেখানে স্কুল বেসড একটা মেট্রোলজিক্যাল ক্লাব, যেখানে 11 সদস্য বিশিষ্ট একটা কমিটি থাকবে। তারা ওয়েদার ইনফরমেশন সম্পর্কে জানতে পারবে, রিয়েল লাইফ এক্সপিরিয়েন্স করতে পারবে, আনসার্টেনিটি সম্পর্কে বুঝতে পারবে। আমাদের এক্সপেকটেশন যখন এরকম একটা জেনারেশন হোললি ডেভেলপ হবে, তারাই আসলে কন্ট্রিবিউট করবে অ্যাজ এ কমিউনিটি পিপল, অ্যাজ এ লোকাল অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন অথবা অন্য যে জায়গাগুলোতে আছে। সো যখন একটা রেডি জেনারেশন এই জায়গাটাতে আসবে তখন তারা অ্যাপ্রোপ্রিয়েটলি অ্যাক্ট করতে পারবে, ওয়েদার আনসার্টেনিটি বুঝবে এবং অ্যান্টিসিপেটরি অ্যাকশনের এসেন্সটাকে তারা আসলে তাদের কার্যক্ষেত্রে নিয়ে আসতে পারবে। সো এই উদ্দেশ্যকে মাথায় রেখে আমরা এটাকে ইনিশিয়েট করেছি এবং আমাদের অবজেক্টিভ হচ্ছে বাংলাদেশের পুরো জায়গায় এই চাইল্ড সেন্ট্রিক অ্যান্টিসিপেটরি অ্যাকশনটাকে ইনবিল্ড করার জন্য এই মেট ক্লাব দিয়ে আমাদের যাত্রা শুরু হয়েছে।
জেলা প্রশাসক, কাকতলী ভূমি অফিস, সৌজন্যে ইনশা। সম্মানিত এলাকাবাসী, আসসালামু আলাইকুম। অতিরিক্ত বৃষ্টি এবং ভারী বর্ষণের কারণে অনুরোধে আগামী 48 ঘন্টা পর্যন্ত অতি ভারী বৃষ্টি ও ঘূর্ণিঝড় হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা রয়েছে। আপনারা যারা পাহাড়ের টিলায় ও পাথরে বসবাস করছেন, আপনাদেরকে অতি সত্তর
Thank you very much for the video, which is provided by Save the Children. Now we move to session 2, which is titled Protecting Children, Empowering Communities. We will have 4 panelists. I believe 2 of them are attending in person and 2 will join online. So I call them by name, Madam Salesa Niemi from SPREP. Mr. I apologize. The program doesn't identify the gender. Madam Marta Keswick from COBE Academy, which will join online. Madam Moa Cortobius from Save the Children. Please, madam. And Mr. Abdul Majid Mutari from Save the Children, Niger. Welcome. I invite first Mr. Salesa Niemye from SPREP. You have, sir, 6 minutes. The title of your talk will be on experiences from Pacific ILK communities on child-centered early warning system. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Amir, and first of all, congratulations, Save the Children, on the agreement that you signed with World Meteorological Organization. We have always believed that the extra hand and the extra legs for the National Meteorological Services are the NGOs, taking taking information right down to the community. So I'm sure that the agreement that you signed with WMO will also benefit Pacific. So I work for a regional organization called Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. And our role is to support and coordinate with WMO, the National Meteorological Services, either looking for money or helping to get information down to the communities. Now, one of the ways that we have done this, and I'll tell you a story for how, especially traditional knowledge, how it is very important in our context. Most of our people that live in communities are not well educated. 70% of them, they live in rural communities, and therefore traditional knowledge is very important to them. When we had Cyclone Pam, this was a Category 5 cyclone that affected a particular community in the islands of Vanuatu. Everyone prepared for the cyclone. The Met Service said it was a Category 5. No one knew what a Category 5 meant. And I'm sure this story probably resonates with other communities when we get very scientific, accurate information that no one understands. And so when the information was passed, everyone prepared because they get cyclones all the time, but no one knew what it meant. Until the Category 5 cyclone came, and most of the houses that they prepared for the cyclone were all blown down. And so when we did the consultation with this one community, they told us that they didn't know what a Cat 5 meant. So in the tropical cyclone tracking maps that we provided to communities with the National Met Services, we included pictures of what a depression meant, of what a Category 1 meant, up to a Category 5. When the Cyclone Harold came, another Category 5, people knew exactly what to do because the picture told them how the cyclone will impact on them. Now, when it comes to a lot of the information that the Met Service puts out, when you say a wind is 50 knots, now in the Met Service, when it comes to tropical cyclones, we get excited when we say the pressure, the air pressure is 800 or 780 hectopascals. We get excited because that means the cyclone is very strong. For the community, they don't know what 800 hectopascals means. Some of them, they don't even know where north is or south is. Or when you say the wind direction is moving in a north-northeast direction, they don't know what that is. But what we have in the Pacific are traditional names for winds. So when you say a wind is coming in a particular direction in their own language, that translates a lot to them. It means the currents will be flowing a certain way. A certain place will be the best place to catch fish, and so on and so forth. And so traditional knowledge in our context is very, very important in terms of weather and climate services. We are also embarking on translating the work under the COPE series to have them in the different languages of the Pacific. We have a project that has now come in place, and we will be doing a lot of that work to ensure that all of these books can be utilized by schools. So hopefully, with the work that Save the Children will be doing in most of our countries, we will have these books available that will be translated by National Met Services, ensure that they are correct, and will be able to utilize them in schools. I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nimemi. Now I would like to invite Madam Marta Keswick from COPE Academy. She has joined us online to present the launch of COPE Interactive Learning Platform. Madam Keswick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Amir, and thank you to WMO for giving us this opportunity to present COPE to you. I'm just going to share my screen, so I'll be able to introduce everybody to some of our decade of empowering children in disaster risk reduction. So the Sendai framework, as we all know, tells us that children are one of the most vulnerable groups and really do need to be educated in disaster risk reduction, DRR, so they can be properly prepared for today's increasing extreme weather events and disasters. So it was back in 2015 that I dreamt up the concept of COPE, a series of scientific yet simple and beautifully illustrated picture books covering different hazards ranging from cyclones to volcanoes, earthquakes to tsunamis. The plot revolves around the COPE squad, Candy, Ollie, Ping and Eddie, who are a team of DRR special agents who are trained up at the COPE Academy in Sichuan province by a strict Grand Mistress Fu. In each of the 13 hazard books, the squad head off on different missions all over the world to teach other kids how to be ready for these disasters and how to become champions of change in their communities. Now, each book contains a key DRR instructional message for kids to remember in that split second should a disaster occur. Earthquake, drop, cover, hold. Cyclone, stay safe. Volcanoes, listen, prepare, stay aware. Avalanche, know before you go. With our latest book on climate change, the message here is to act now for tomorrow, so that children will come away with some little changes they can make in their day-to-day lives, such as switch off the lights, travel light, eat less red meat, etc. So aligning with the Sendai framework, COPE encourages awareness for the vulnerable groups. So the elderly, migrants, those living in poverty, to ensure that no one is left behind. Interestingly, Eddie, who's one of the COPE squad, he's hearing impaired and he's from Brazil. So he communicates with other members of the COPE squad using the Libras sign language, because that is the sign language that is used in Brazil. UNICEF East Asia and Pacific advise us on the inclusion of disabilities and children's rights. Now, today we're talking about content creation for Indigenous people. And Indigenous people and communities feature throughout our COPE narratives. So the Droughts book, which is based in mainland China, COPE stay on a tea plantation in Sichuan-Bana, home of the famous Pu'er tea, where they meet and learn from Yang, who belongs to the Aini ethnic minority and is in charge of the tea plantation. In avalanches, COPE visit Kura Tauhiti, which is a rock formation in New Zealand's South Island. Here, they learn the importance of respecting the land, which has a deep connection to the Maoris and their ancestors. This promotes inclusivity by ensuring Indigenous voices are heard and honoured. So our journey thus far has been epic. In 2021, the WMO came on board as our scientific advisors, and we just signed an MOU with WMO at the Global Platform in June of this year. COPE is considered as WMO's special contribution and key approach to Pillar 1, which is disaster risk knowledge and management, with the angle of building children's awareness of early warning system. Our free content has now reached about 3 million kids worldwide via 35 collaborators across 40 different countries. And we had a huge moment in 2024 when the UNSG launched the Cyclones book at a primary school in Tonga. We were really proud at that moment. So the books are available now in about 23 different languages, ranging from Mongolian, Sinhalese, Nepali, and we thank WMO for translating the books into the 6 UN languages. So we've expanded our content from traditional books into more interactive content now, such as the animated 45-second jingles, which have been produced by the Tang Company in Singapore. These are catchy music animations with catchy music over the top to reinforce the key messages. So the wildfires, be ready to go, storm surges, keep clear from the coast. The jingles are designed to make disaster preparedness more accessible for children worldwide. So I'm just going to play you the heatwave jingle now.
It's a heat wave, heat wave. We gotta stay cool and hydrate. We'll be playing in the shade, playing in the shade. Wear a hat, cover your head. Let's stay cool and hydrate. Cause it's a heat wave, a heat wave. Wet your skin with a sponge or spray. When you play, when you play. Cope champions, you're doing great.
So yeah, they are quite catchy, the jingles. You'll probably hear yourselves singing one later. So this map shows COPE's dissemination via different NGOs and UN agencies all over the world, getting these key DRR messages into community projects on the ground. So earthquake drills in Cantonese in Hong Kong primary schools via the Hong Kong Jockey Club, volcanoes workshops in Spanish in Nicaragua via the University of Oxford, landslide storytelling sessions in schools and readings in Nepali with World Vision Nepal, role-playing for flood preparedness using finger puppets in Malay for kids in Indigenous communities via the Sultan Idris University. So our books are now onloaded onto 24 online platforms, such as We Adapt, UNDRR Prevention Web, and the UNICEF Learning Passport. And this is all with the intention of disseminating this free content digitally. So today, we're really, really thrilled to be celebrating and launching a new milestone, which is a collaboration with the Singapore University of Social Sciences, which has brought these COPE stories and characters to life in a whole new way. Together, we have created an interactive learning platform which will be hosted on the SUSS UniLearn. Children can explore the COPE series through beautifully animated and narrated ebooks. And these immersive experiences include the jingles and quizzes and all sorts of other games which are designed to help children learn about climate resilience in a fun, innovative, and meaningful way. So let's see how the platform works through this short video which brings the climate change book to life.
It was late November on Mount Ermey. Cope celebrated the early snowfall by building a snowman.
Let's use twigs for the arms.
Yes, and buttons for the eyes.
A carrot for the nose, raisins for the mouth.
Great job, Cope.
Soon it was back to work. Cope was learning about climate change and how it connects with increasing extreme weather events and disasters, such as floods and wildfires. Instead of flying in Grand Mistress Fu's helicopter, they decide on a bike-packing adventure to reduce their carbon emissions.
Hold on to your handlebars.
Wait for me! Quick, rescue!
Arriving at the conference, the squad is in awe of its size, with global leaders coming together to tackle climate change. First stop, the World Meteorological Organization Pavilion. Here, scientists will explain the 7 climate clues which indicate how our planet is changing.
What do we know about greenhouse gases?
We know that greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. The one with the largest climate impact are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide.
Scientists use numbers and letters to help identify them. Carbon dioxide, CO2, methane, CH4, nitrous oxide, N2O.
So as you can see, this new interactive platform, which is a really, really excellent way to engage more and more children in DRR education. So thank you everybody for listening, and please do reach out for more information. We're open for all sorts of collaborations. So really, let's just keep spreading the DRR word and make the difference and be ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Keswick. Very interesting and informative material. I would like now invite Madam Moa Cortobius from Save the Children again to the panel. She will talk on neo-learning and synthesis materials on child-centered and locally led anticipatory action. Please.
Yes, I'm not going to say that I apologize, but you will have to see quite a few interventions by me this time. I'm presenting this excellent study that Save the Children has carried out on how we can generate child-centered and locally led anticipatory action. I ask for permission to stand here instead of sitting there so that I can see the slides. Sorry for those online if they can't see me. Yes, can I have the next? Oh, sorry, the next slide. Yes, so as we have mentioned, we know that children are at extreme risk. It's estimated that about 1 billion children actually live at extreme climate risk today. Climate change is not something for the future, and I think that that is something that most of us know here, but something that is affecting children today. As I also mentioned, about 40 million children face education disruption yearly. And between 2022 and 2024, about 10% of school days were lost due to different types of shocks. And when we think about that, many of the children that are in school today already have faced COVID and what that has meant for the education quality, considering that they are already facing a 10% loss to shocks and probably even more, is really worrying for the opportunities in the future and for the possibilities to learn and protect themselves. At the same time, we know that more than half of humanitarian crises are actually predictable and therefore also preventable. With the climate information systems and services we have today, we can actually forecast and predict many of the shocks that are coming in our way. And because we can anticipate and foresee these shocks, we can also develop anticipatory action when we have the resources and systems in place to save both lives and to protect communities, children, and the basic needs and services that they have to survive. So to understand what are the good practices that exist around the world on how to center children in anticipatory action, Save the Children has developed a study together with the Haui Oli Mauloa Foundation. I apologize if that was a butchering of the name, but to really develop that and to really understand how the investments and activities supporting community-based anticipatory action has minimized predictable crisis impacts for children and strengthened community resilience. And what we looked at specifically was which were the key achievements, which were the enabling factors, and what was the nature and depth of the engagement of communities and children, and finally, what good practices and recommendations can we find in this documentation of experiences. The census's report brought together learning from 26 projects in 12 different countries, including one of our greatest projects that spanned 25 countries, and which included the preparation for the El Niño phenomena that just happened 2023 and 2024. We looked at evaluations, key studies, and did several key informant interviews to enrich in this study. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what were some of the achievements that we could see in this research? Well, more than 504,000 children were supported to anticipate and prepare for hazards in 2024 alone. It's estimated that about 550 people were saved in Bangladesh through initiatives such as the one that you saw in the video, the initial video. 82% of the supported households in Ethiopia were able to protect their assets and livelihoods ahead of the droughts and floods that affected the country. In Malawi, we strengthened the child protection services, reducing by that the risk of child labor and early marriage, for example, which we know are effects of increased shocks to communities. And in Nigeria, in the Benue state, nearly all households used cash assistance to cover school fees during the floods, to be able to maintain children in school during this period. And we could also see a reduced malaria prevalence during the floods in Sudan. Next slide, please. And how did we do this? Well, by centering climate services around children, we invested in climate literacy. We translated forecasting into child-friendly format and local languages, as the distinguished co-panelist was speaking about. Climate information is often very technical and is not easily understandable even for adults, less for children. We co-developed forecast and early warning advisories together with children. We engage children and youth in communicating forecasts and early warning systems to support inclusive access. And we enable children and communities to identify local and child-sensitive thresholds, which can be linked with national thresholds. Because of course, a flooding that goes up to knee for an adult is maybe life-threatening going up to the chest, or for a small child. So the thresholds that we need when we think about how children is affected by shocks is very different to when we think about adults. Next slide, please. And by doing this, we center children and youth as agents of change, but we also strengthened community resilience. So children and youth participated in anticipatory action, and this increased their confidence and ability to cope with predictable climate-related impacts. It also provided them with an opportunity to actually be heard, to speak their voice about how disasters are affecting them and the solutions that they need to reduce the risks. They were engaged and became leaders in their communities and took on key advocacy roles so that they could advocate for climate resilience efforts in their communities, schools, and even at local and national level. We also enable children to inform national climate services and frameworks and anticipatory action at the community level, but also at local and national level. Next slide, please. So overall, in short, we involve children across the anticipatory action cycle and the risk assessment and risk monitoring and risk communication and preparedness and anticipatory action implementation, and finally in the monitoring and evaluation of the activities that have been put in place. Next slide, please. And some of these enabling factors that we found in our study include, of course, the co-production of forecasts with children and communities, the investment, again, in forecast literacy and child-friendly information, strengthening of local early warning systems and linking them with national frameworks. And this is why we're so happy that we have national hydrometeorological services here today, because that collaboration between local and national level is so important. We also integrated traditional knowledge and practices with scientific forecasting for timely localized activation, building on the systems that often already exist in communities, which may not be documented or recognized, but communities are often generally monitoring the risks that they are faced with. So it's incredibly important to build on that and strengthen that. We ensure timely and adequate cash assistance to households and disaster risk reduction committees. And again, we recognize children and youth not only as vulnerable groups, but as agents of change for resilience, and included them as key stakeholders in climate service frameworks. And thank you. This is, if you would like to see and read much more in detail about the different very important and interesting efforts, please do download the report or come up to me and I can share a link or the QR code later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause, Madam Kortobius. Now I would like to invite Mr. Abdul Majidi Mutari from Safe Children of Niger. You have 9 minutes, including the video that you will play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank WMO and Save the Children Global to give us this opportunity to share our experience in Niger, the work of children in the forecasting and prevention. I want to present you the video. This video is reveals the power of children in the anticipatory actions and forecasting. The video send us a strong message. The message is children are not just victims, they are keys of resilience and prevention. We have made a workshop on co-production in DIFA, and the children designed and implemented local innovative that change lives. You see in the video some testimonies from technical services, beneficiaries, and children facing the impact of climate change. They made small activities, but that is better to change their lives. It's some solution, but yet effective to save lives. Our key message through this video is integrating children into climate change is an investment in the future. Now, before watching this video, I want to ask you to ask yourself, if you gave the tools to the children to protect and to forecast, what can be the world? Donc that's you are going to see in the video, because when children anticipate, communities survive. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mutari. Now we are waiting for the video to be broadcast. Thank you.
Échanger sur les anticipatoires. On a eu à former des groupes avec des enfants où ils ont vraiment démontré leur compréhension de l'importance même de la météorologie dans leur quotidien. Et vraiment, ça a été vraiment quelque chose de très positif. Il y a eu vraiment de l'implication des enfants. Ils sont vraiment retranscrits et retransmis ce qu'on leur a donné. Et vraiment, tous les différents risques, les différents phénomènes météorologiques qui peuvent directement impacter leur vie ont été mis en exergue et ont été mis vraiment en évidence par les enfants. Ils sont vraiment pour leur âge, c'était vraiment quelque chose d'extraordinaire.
On a eu à faire des sensibilisations dans les différents quartiers qu'on a ciblés. On a ciblé jusqu'à 5 quartiers ce sont des quartiers vraiment inondables ici à Difa. Genre, si on parle de du changement climatique, ça les touche vraiment. Et on a fait appel à ces 5 quartiers. On est parti, on les a sensibilisés du petit qu'on a recueilli, on les a montré les causes, les conséquences, les solutions et autres qu'ils doivent prendre avant que ce changement leur arrive. Vraiment, on a beaucoup travaillé jusqu'à on a fait des digues, des sables, les sables là, on les a remplis, on a envoyé des enfants, ils les ont supervisés, on a fait beaucoup de travail. Et voilà, donc on a eu beaucoup d'améliorations. Parce qu'au début, les gens ne connaissent même pas c'est quoi même le changement climatique, comment même lutter contre le changement climatique.
Da farko da mun yi atelier a MJC da mu da projet kariya, kuma daga nan mun yi tattara kamar mu les enfants ambassadeurs, mun ta yi sensibiliser mutane kuma mun ta yi bakin kogi an ciccika buhuna an tare kamar kan kogi ya taso, kuma mun ta yi les différents écoles a cikin kuma akwai école ɗin gaskiya da ba cikin tsaro yake. École ɗin mun ta yi da directrice ke ta gwada mana ta ce ga shi nan école ɗin dai kamar bayan kogi yake, kuma akwai macizai suna shigowa. Shakan ba a kowane rantar sai an samu ka ko macizai ya cije ɗan mutane.
Da yanzu mu kaɗai ne muke zuwa muke fama da mutane a unguwa, kuma buhuhuna suna mana wahala, beri kuma tana kama mana. Wani lokuta kuma tsahinmu suke kotize cikin unguwa har suke haɗa kuɗi a sai buhu kuma a zo a yi. Yanzu kuma wanga da aka zo aka yi shi gaskiya mu ta muna daɗi sosai. Tunda yanzu in mun so mai yin aiki ba sai mun ƙara shan wani wahala ba. Yanzu bai wuce buhu 3 zuwa 4 zan mu ƙara dora. Yanzu bare ma dai aikin nan da aka yi wanga gaskiya mun ji daɗi shi sosai.
Amma ni aikin da ya fara birge ni da aka daddane bakin ruwa inda aka sa ƙasa da wanga buhu a kararre
sai inda muka ta yi ekwal aka bi shi ma aka diddiba matsalan shi aka zuzzubta ƙasa gaskiya shi ma ni dai ya kwanta mun ta yi mun ba su dan bayani da mu ma muka samu saboda shi canjin yanayi in ya zo kowane lokaci ba kala guda mai tunda canjawa yake yi mun ta yi mun dan yi maganganu a kan shi.
Dans le cadre de la changement climatique, c'est un phénomène mondialement reconnu, c'est une réalité que les enfants sont arrivés à sortir tous les phénomènes, toutes les conséquences, les causes et les conséquences, soit simplement communautaires. Et ils sont arrivés à faire de nombreuses activités. Ils ont conduit, en tout cas, les activités de prévention de l'inondation. Donc, comme on le savait, chaque année, nous sommes victimes d'inondation à la commune de la Comarco. Donc, il y a la digue de protection de la ville. Donc, nous avons proposé vraiment de sécuriser davantage la ville. Et pour cela, donc, il fallait prévenir, il fallait prévoir des activités d'anticipation. Et c'est dans ce cas, ils ont prévu de renforcer les digues que nous avions, donc la communauté a déjà construites par le passé. Sur cette activité, ils ont suivi l'activité aussi, donc jusqu'à ce terme.
Thank you very much. So now we come to question and answers. I would like to invite all panelists come to the panel. Please, Madam Cortobius, Mr. Mokhtari, Madam Selesa. So we have 3 questions based on what we heard from you. Question 1, from your experience, what are some effective ways to integrate children's perspectives and local knowledge into the design and delivery of early warning systems and climate services? I address this question first to Mr. Salesa, based on your experience from the Pacific, then you pass the microphone to next panelist. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. So the best way to address children's views and incorporate them into early warning systems is to ensure that they are part of the discussion to come up with solutions. When we run community-based early warning systems in most of our communities in the Pacific, we ensure that we divide equally the participants so that we reflect views from the elderlies, the youth, the women, and the men who are usually in most of our contexts are the decision makers, but to ensure that we give that space for children and the youth to participate and to provide their views into how the community should prepare themselves. And we often find that when we divide them up that way, the views that come out from the children and the youth are often different. They will, in terms of communications, for example, the elderly, they listen to the radio. So their form of getting information is through the radio. The youth and the children, they would rather get information from social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, which they are more attuned to. So in that way, information that we send out ensure that we get all views from everyone. In terms of the local local communities. Now, I had mentioned before the importance of ensuring that the knowledge from communities are viewed equally important to the science. And we have had a project in our region to start collecting weather and climate indicators for traditional weather and climate indicators, where a lot of our communities they use these indicators to tell them when a severe weather would happen. And so they relate because they have observed this over many, many years. For them, this makes sense to them more than the information that the Met Service puts out in their bulletins. And so we have this project to try and integrate the traditional knowledge and the Western science to make sure that whatever the information that we provide from the Met Service makes a lot of sense to them. And in a lot of the communities that we go to, when you do it that way, and when they see that the traditional knowledge information makes sense, sometimes you cannot shut them up. They will have a lot to contribute. When we go and tell them, only from the science aspect, they will listen to you. They will not at your information, and more often than not, they will not contribute to the discussion. But when you relate to traditional knowledge and the things that they observe on a day-to-day basis, and the knowledge, and they see value in their knowledge, that it is also equally important. You can sit with them until it's nighttime, and they won't be tired to sharing a lot of the information that they have. So I think the value of ensuring that when we go down to community, we value the information that they have is equally important, and providing a space for information from for the youth and the children to equally participate in making decisions and coming up with solutions for how they receive information at the community level is also equally important. Thank you.
Thank you. I very much agree with what was just said by my co-panelists. I think that this mutual recognition of communities, of children, of youth as knowledge holders, right, is so important. Knowledge holders about both of understanding what the local climate and weather looks like and what the patterns are, but also thinking about how a flooding impacts, for example, a community, how a drought impact the communities, which are the most vulnerable families that would require support, and also what are the actions that have worked or have not worked to respond or try to mitigate those impacts is so important. So I think that humbleness and that mutual respect when we come into dialogue with communities and community organizations, Indigenous peoples, First Nations, children and youth is really fundamental. I would just like to add just one very practical example where I think that we also often, coming from the outside, we underestimate the importance of the school and the teachers as kind of a community central hub, not only for teaching and learning for children, but for the families, for the community, really. And it is a meeting place where I think that we can come together and really support each other through that structure and through that space to strengthen the resilience of children and youth and adolescents, yes, but for the wider community, really. And we have an example in Guatemala, for example, where we have a climate resilience project that started through the school, but then when it was translated into both the Indigenous language and adapted to their worldviews and to their ways of seeing nature and to their ways of interacting with nature, their parents became so interested that they said, we want this too. And then they adapted that cut it down to fewer and kind of more concentrated models because the parents didn't necessarily have the same time to be in school for many hours assisting in education. So they concentrated the key information, and then shared that with the wider community. And I think that type of integrated intervention is something that we can utilize even more to speak to and learn together with communities.
Quickly, agree with them, but I want to add something. You must to consider that you have many categories of children. You have children with a disability. Disability is many kind of. You have blender. You have children with jam. You have anyway. You have also children in school and children out the school. The first reality and the big challenge is how to adapt the tools with every kind of children. If you done this, the second time is to train. And after this, you give more information to the children. You must to be trust, and you will see children are going to design, to predict all the things, and are able to make what is possible, looking for the reality. That's what I want to add.
Thank you very much. Since we are behind the schedule and the answers were cross-cutting, I would like to skip to other questions. Please give a round of applause. Now we move to session 4 with new panelists. Thank you very much for your attendance. Now we move to session 4, Child-Centered Climate Services, which will be in 40 minutes. And if we save time, the better. Our first speaker is Mr. Danilo Mora from UNICEF. He's supposed to be in person here. We are not sure. He has not confirmed. Okay. So we move now to second speaker, Madame Veronica Grasso, our colleague from the WMO Secretariat. She joins online. So Veronica, you have the floor. You can start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a technical issue. Are you able to see me and hear me?
Yes, it's okay. And we have your slide on the screen.
Thank you very much, colleagues, for inviting me to give a presentation during this important session. I also wanted to thank my colleague Nakiete Misemo, who's online, who helped with the preparation of the slides. So next slide. So WMO State of the Climate confirmed that 2025 is well on track to be the second or third warmest year on record. Everyone on Earth is impacted by climate change impacts, but among those impacted, children are the most affected. So children are more vulnerable to heat stress, water and vector-borne diseases, malnutrition, and extreme weather events. But as you heard from the other speakers of this important session, there also can be agents of change. So through this WMO collection of case studies on climate services for children, we have showcased important stories and initiatives that bring children at the heart of climate services, involved in them, and also providing information that is tailored to their needs. Next slide. So you will see that we have 27 case studies spanning most of the regions of WMO. We have case studies from Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas, and the Pacific that show that climate services and early warning systems can be designed with and for children. So these examples demonstrate how children can support having community safe and informed. So one of the most important and most inspiring examples from this case study collection comes from Malawi. and Bangladesh. I cannot see the slides. We can go to the next slides. In particular, in Malawi, across 30 schools in Zomba and Nano districts, some disaster risk reduction clubs were formed to have children learn how to interpret weather forecasts and what to do to stay safe. And you will hear more about that by the next speaker. And so they used interesting and very innovative approaches through theater representations, but also board games. Next slide. In Bangladesh, youth and children were part of the Met clubs through schools that were formed at schools to help them understand the rainfall conditions and monitor, for example, rain gauges, but also how to communicate forecasts with their families. As of now, we have 2,000 children in Bangladesh that are sharing information on weather forecasts and unsafe conditions with their families. So these stories really show us that children are critical agents for climate resilience. Next slide. To scale this up, we recommend that climate services are inclusive, are accessible, are actionable, transformed in a way with language that is understandable by children, and so they need to be co-created with children. On behalf of WMO, I would like to thank all of our important partners that shared insights and really insightful case studies and stories to be part of this collection, which is being launched today. We'll have a campaign through social media, so please follow WMO on LinkedIn and the other social media platforms. So with this, I want to wish you a successful continuation of the event, and you will hear more about the case studies from Malawi and Bangladesh. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grasso, for your presentation. I have the pleasure now to invite Madam Lucy Mtila Tila. She's Director of the Department of Climate Change and Meteorological Service of Malawi. The floor is yours, Madam.
Thank you very much. I think I'll sit here. Yeah, it gives me a pleasure to be here and share with you what Malawi is doing in regards to climate and children. This is a story that is coming from 2019, when we had a global framework for climate services with support from NORAD. That's when we started engaging children to see how we can empower them and work together. But during that time, it was more of a passive engagement where the thought was like, we give them the information, we teach them. That was the approach that we had. But along the way, we've been learning quite a lot, and we realized that these children also, they have some knowledge that they can contribute. So we are moving from being passive climate information receivers to be active now in the process. So when we were developing our national framework for climate services in 2024, we made sure that children are engaged. So with support from Save the Children and Ministry of Education, we made sure that this framework is indeed covering education and children. And because of that, we are already seeing some positive response where partners are coming in to see how we can help the children. So along the way, there are programs in the schools, including development of standard operating procedures, trying to understand the climate risk at the schools so that they understand how exposed they are. In that way, they are already aware of their environment. So when the warnings are coming, they are already ready to respond properly. It's no longer something where the event comes and then everyone is surprised, wondering where do we go from here? But right now it's more organized. Of course, right now we've started with a few districts, but the plan is to scale it up to almost the whole country, so that we should have these climate risk information. The children, they should know how to operate and use equipment. I like the example of Bangladesh that we've seen. So we are also moving towards that, having the climate spaces for the children, having information that is children tailored for them. And right now, like in the 2 districts where we are piloting, we are seeing quite a lot of change for the children, how they respond, how eager they are looking forward to the messages that are shared with them. If you delay without sharing in time, that's when you hear a backlash. When are we waiting for the next forecast for the next day, for next 2 days? So we are seeing that interest and the energy that these children have. So we'd like to keep that momentum. And another plan that we have is to have a children app that will help them, including having the literature that will help the children to understand the climate, but at the same time, be able to support themselves or to be resilient right now. But at the same time, we know that we are building the future for them. This knowledge that they are acquiring now, it will be very useful as they are growing up. So right now, those are the few things that we are doing, and we hope in the near future, watch the space, will bring quite a lot, because we have a lot of things that are in the pipeline, like in the next 1 year or 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Mtila Tila. Now we have the next speaker, Mr. Javed Miandat from Save the Children of Bangladesh. This is a recorded video that I invite your attention. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good morning from Bangladesh. This is Javed Miandat. Basically, I'm a meteorologist and currently working as a manager anticipatory action at Save the Children Bangladesh. So today I will be talking about like how the children are getting impacted by disaster in Bangladesh and what we can do to protect themselves from these climate and weather shocks, and what are our model that we are incorporating or developing in Bangladesh regarding anticipatory action, and how we are actually institutionalize the model into the national disaster management framework. So at the first, I want to notify or highlight, like in Bangladesh, according to the Climate Watch Foundation report, 19 million children in Bangladesh are currently at risk from climate impact. And to protect themselves from this climate and weather shock, Bangladesh spend around 1.7 billion dollar every year. It's a huge amount of money, but most of the money is spending after the disaster. But what if we can actually involve or incorporate some of the money for anticipatory action so that we can maximize the value for money regarding child protection from climate and weather shocks? Although in Bangladesh, 75% of households received forecast regularly, but still they are not acting upon that due to some challenge. And when we did a study on the gap or challenges, like why the community is not following the early warning, we have found there are 2 major challenges. One is behavioral barriers, another one is socioeconomic and cultural factors. In terms of behavioral barriers, we have found like sometimes the community people don't understand the early warning, and also they have a trust issue on the messenger and the source of early warnings, and sometimes they have the tendency to underestimate the risk. In terms of socioeconomic and cultural factors, there is a lack of literacy and media access at the local level, and sometimes they actually undermine the impact of disaster due to their past experience. To overcome those challenges, Save the Children Bangladesh from the support from Bangladesh Meteorological Department and RIMES and Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief, we're trying to develop a child-centered anticipatory action model in Bangladesh. And to establish the child-centered anticipatory action model, we have gone through some of the intervention, and those are the things you can see at the presentation, like what we are doing currently to incorporate child-centric approach into the anticipatory action. At the beginning level, we try to capacitize the children and youth at the community level. And through our initiative, we were able to achieve more than 600 children and youth. They are capacitized on early warning, forecasting, anticipatory action, and disaster management. Everybody knows the youth are the innovative and they thought out of the box. To accommodate their ideas and innovation into the anticipatory action and disaster management thing, we held a national workshop named Eyes on Earth Observation Competition. We conducted child-centered community risk assessment and vulnerability modeling mapping at the community level, where the voices from the children also included into the report. Currently, we are working on child-centered weather forecasting and early warning learning platform through gamification. And thanks to Bangladesh Meteorological Department to supporting us to develop a learning platform where children can understand the climate, weather, and how the interpretation of warning for the community and for the children in a simplified way. That is, we are working from the guidance of Bangladesh Meteorological Department. We have installed some of the hydrometeorological instruments at the school level so that the children as well as the young can compare the forecast with the real-time scenario. And for that thing, we have installed 14 automatic flood alarm at flood-prone area and 15 plus conventional rain gauge and also wind shock at the coastal belt, so they can continue monitor the localized risk and compare that with the forecasting thing, so that they can build their trust on the forecast gradually. Apart from that, we are at the development phase of 22 sub-district level child-centered anticipatory action plan, where everything will be included, like what are the risks, what they need to do, what are the trigger and threshold, and also the child-centric anticipatory action, nearly 60 plus actions identified, and those are embedded into the early action plan protocol. We are not limiting how we actually develop the child-centered risk analysis. We don't only get the information from the community people, we also get information, risk and vulnerability information from the children, not only from the school, also from the community children. Here we can see some of the evidence generation or learning that we have done through our intervention. As I already mentioned, we do have a national level competition by involving the youth, Eyes on Earth, and through that actually event, we get a very technical team, that is risk detectives, and they developed a landslide risk monitoring dashboard where the people can monitor landslide regularly. We are able to implement anticipatory action for landslide in Bangladesh first time in Bangladesh at the Chattogram area, where through the anticipatory action, we reached nearly 65,000 people. And through our Made Club, that is the innovative idea, where the children are the messenger and providing the warning in a simplified way to the community. And through the Made Club, we were able to reach 1,800 children at the community level. And as a result, 550 people are evacuated at the safe shelter from the risky area.
একটি শিশুর জীবনে ম্যাড ক্লাব খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা রাখে, কারণ শিশুরা যখন বয়সে বড় হবে তখন তাদের নেতৃত্ব প্রদান করতে হবে। সেই নেতৃত্ব প্রদানই আমরা শিখতে পারি ম্যাড ক্লাব থেকে। এছাড়া যারা পাহাড়ের পাশে বসবাস করে, গবাদি পশু নিয়ে নিজেদের জীবনযাপন করছে, বৃষ্টি, ঘূর্ণিঝড় এবং ভূমিধসে তাদের জীবন নিয়ে টানমান হয়ে যায়, ফলে আমরা তাদের আগাম সতর্কবার্তা প্রচার করে দিতে পারি। এই ম্যাড ক্লাব আমার জীবনে, আমার পরিবার এবং আমার প্রতিবেশীদের জীবনে খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা রাখছে। আবহাওয়া সম্বন্ধে কোনো যদি আমি তথ্য পেয়ে থাকি, তা আমি আমার বন্ধুদের, প্রতিবেশী এবং নিজের পরিবারের সাথে শেয়ার করে থাকি, ফলে তারা আগে থেকে সতর্ক হয়ে যায়। এবং যদি আমরা আরও বেশি কিছু করতে পারি, তাহলে এখন ভূমিধস, ঘূর্ণিঝড় ইত্যাদির আশঙ্কা একেবারে কমে যাবে। সর্বশেষে রাইমস, ইফসা এবং সেভ দ্য চিলড্রেনকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই, কারণ আমাদের শিশুদের জন্য একটি ম্যাট ক্লাব করে দেওয়ার জন্য।
We have made already 2 meteorological club and this meteorological club which is engaged by the young students. We web-based school-centered early warning systems we disseminate to the schools. That means that Met Club and the students who are engaged within this Met Club, they will discuss with them, they learn what is the terminology used in their warnings and how they will take preparation and how they will make it actionable among them. Not the early warning system can be disseminated to the last mile, which is very aligned to the early warning for all initiative of World Meteorological Organization. So that we are hopeful if we can scale up this Met Club through Bangladesh, and we have also a plan, and we also give a proposal to the Asia Pacific Dialogue Platform that this Met Club can be a good initiative to disseminate the early warning system to the last mile. One school consists of 1,000 students, so that immediately 1,000 students belongs to at least 5 members, so that 5,000 people will be will get the early warning system, and the student will not only their family members but in their community level, their friends, and in their community they will communicate fast that there is a severe system is coming. This is the early warning system. It should be actionable, and what type of precautionary measurement or anticipatory action will be taken. They will suggest the family members, even the community level. That way, the early warning system can be actionable, which is important for we make it scale up all over Bangladesh, as well as it can be spread throughout the Asia Pacific region. I am hopeful that the early warning system will be owned by the child-centered Med Club or school-based Med Club, which is very important. Through this, anticipatory action can be taken very fast.
And we have a vision like by 2027, aligning with the early warning for all initiative in Bangladesh, we are hoping to have one Met Club, one district, so that we will be able to generate a new weather ready and climate smart generation who will be informed and who actually know the uncertainty of the forecast, what they need to do after getting the warning, and they will help the community and the youth to like take early action appropriately by getting the warning, and they will be able to cope the disaster impact by implementing anticipatory actions. So thanks everyone for listening us, and we will connect again when we are able to collaboratively establish this kind of initiative regionally. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I thank Bangladesh Met Department for providing this recorded video to us. Now we move to session 5, which is dedicated to gender inclusion and locally led adaptation. This session emphasizes the intersection of gender inclusion and local leadership in climate resilience. Our first speaker is Mr. Theo Wellington from the WMO Secretariat. Theo, you have 8 minutes. Floor is for you. Thank you.
Hello. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen so you can see my slides. And I'll be presenting the Youth Action Plan as well as a cruise report that we've been working on at the World Meteorological Organization, which shows some of our gender in some of our gender implemented activities across the world. So very quickly, please do let me know if you can see my screen. So on WMO, we've heard a lot about engagements with children, with youth. We have been also creating our youth action plan. And why youth? Because youth are driving a lot of innovation when it comes to either AI or communicating with social media. The work that we do when it comes to standardizing the science and being the authoritative voice in weather, water, and climate, we need a lot of young people to champion that work. They also bridge science and society. They are good translators of the information that we provide. So whether it's the state of the climate reports, to understanding how the measurements are taking place, what is the state of our climate, a lot of young people are excited about the data and the science. And this youth action plan is about connecting a lot of young people who are very interested about environmental change and climate change to also be interested in the science behind that mechanism. And realizing that a lot of this climate change, a lot of it comes from the information that the WMO provides, and we provide that baseline. And it's also about advancing trust and inclusion. About half the world is below the age of 35. So that means the brightest ideas and a lot of new ways of looking at the same problems rest with the younger generation. So what is our youth action plan? We have 5 pillars. We consulted with the UN Youth Office, and we also it was consulted with there was a lot of consultations from the staff to last year at COP as we were present, asking a lot of organizations on what they expect from the WMO to have in its youth action plan. The first pillar is on governance. This is about ensuring that the youth can meet with the youth network to organize themselves and to have that free space to share ideas. And the second part of that is about being involved in the decision making we make at the World Meteorological Organization. Part of that is involving more young people in our decision making processes. Secondly, capacity building. There's a lot like has been highlighted behind science, behind the warnings. What is the weather? How does it differentiate from climate, etc.? A lot of young people are eager to learn. So it's about improving the capacity building externally, but also internally with our staff as well, making sure that the next generation of climate, weather, and water leaders are ready. Thirdly, we have the human resources, and fourth, we also have our human resources is more internal. So it's about making sure that young people are involved in the higher they go up, and it's about ensuring that there is more youth engagement and youth in our organization. Fourthly, we have communications and partnerships. How are we communicating? To what percentage are youth aware of the work that we do? And also partnerships. How do we partner with young organizations across the world? And then we have the monitoring and evaluation framework, which underpins this all, ensuring that this youth action plan is implementable and that does get monitored and does get action. So that is in brief summary, our youth action plan. It just got passed in October during our Congress. And I'll pause there for a bit and then start moving to the cruise report. Give me 1 second. So if you can see the screen, I think I'm spotlighted still, but if you can see the screen, it's more about the current practices in gender.
Yes, we have it. Yes.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. So this is part of we've been collecting some of our gender activities over the past it's been the implemented project from 2015, I should say, to 2025. This is an upcoming publication, so it will be released later this week or next week. And it's about what the WMO has been implementing when it comes to CRUISE. CRUISE is one of our donors that we work with across the world to ensure that there's that gap bridge when it comes to early warnings for all. So these are a glossary of a few terms, but I can briefly highlight why this report is very important. We use the framework where we combine the gender equality marker with gender typology, such as gender sensitive, gender responsive, and gender transformative. Why did we do this? This was so that we were noticing that different project activities were tagged as different GEM levels, and this was causing confusion. And so when it's marked with these typologies, there seems to be more rationale, and it's also improved our learning and our experiences when it comes to how we were implementing projects. But we also hope that it inspires other organizations when it comes to learning how to go about different activities when it comes to mainstreaming gender and climate. And so when we had this typology and when we had this matrix combined, we realized that it guided more and it provided more sense. So very quickly, gender sensitive became the gender equality marker 1. What this usually means is that GEM1 means that whilst gender is not a main part of the project, they do acknowledge the differences between gender and between men and women, for example. So we have here Haiti, where workshops and partnerships with UNDP were carried out with disaster risk management. We also have the example of Togo, where there was a technical workshop that was taking place, and women were included in these processes. As you can see, this is not necessarily trying to change the system or trying to intervene heavily, but these are still some examples of gender activities that can be carried out to begin sensitizing and acknowledging the differences between men and women. And the reason what is good is that in the report and in the lengthier version, the rationale for why it's considered the GEM1 is given. These are again the gender equality marker as a way of a background is how project activities when it comes to gender and to what extent are we carrying out gender activities and to what extent are we recognizing those differences. And so you can see them here. Then we go more concretely into gender responsive, which is GEM2. Here you can begin to see that there are more interventions when it comes to ensuring that women are not left behind. So I will quickly look at the example of Cambodia and Laos. Here, this was a training workshop that was built on the capacity of 80 plus government, NGOs, and community actors to integrate gender and social inclusion into flood early warnings. The reason we gave this a GEM2 is that it provided concrete tools and plans to address the barriers for women and vulnerable groups, showing gender equality as a significant objective. However, there weren't, when it comes to gender transformative, then you're asking for a transformative or societal shift in how they see these differences. So as you can see, this was more about having a flood warning system that was more inclusive of women. So it does go beyond just acknowledging the gender differences, and it is grounded in gender analysis. However, it's less than that systemic shift for GEM3. And it was a good learning experience for us at the WMO because with these type of criterias, it also provides more opportunities for us to start having more gender transformative activities when it comes to implementing our project. And lastly, we have the gender transformative GEM3. We have an example in the Pacific, and this was done, again, CRUISE supported a training where meteorological and disaster management agencies in leadership and networking skills to strengthen their role in shaping early warnings. Why did we give this GEM3? This workshop made women's leadership and institutional influence its principal objective, equipping the participants to shape policies and government and early warning system. This was about changing how early warnings are understood and how women and the gender differences should be at the center of early warnings. And I think these type of activities, there's also an upcoming gender activity in CRUISE East Africa, where the UN Women are heavily involved in that process. And from the onset, from the beginning of the project design, up to its delivery now, it's about to get implemented, it's just started, you can see that addressing the gender differences and balances is a main objective of the project. And it's trying to cause a systemic shift and a systems thinking into how we address gender. We hope that this report can help other organizations begin to learn. We do know that implementing, as a technical organization, implementing gender activities whilst also trying to, ensure that the capacities of NMHSs are also growing and evolving can be very hard to balance. But we hope that this offers a learning experience for other organizations to chime in, to learn, to see activities that they can do for low cost. And it's also for us a way of institutional learning. We've begun to document in projects what we're doing when it comes to gender. And with that, because we have a documentation of that, we can begin to see where we can improve. So this is just the beginning, and this is
Mr.
the cruise
Conrad.
report.
Excuse me, Mr. Wellington, we are in short of time.
Okay, but that's the end of my presentation. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next speaker is Mr. Conrad Igboba. Sir, thank you very much. Welcome. Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Awesome. So my name is Conrad. I speak for and on behalf of Dr. Priscilla Achakba, who founded and leads Women Environmental Program. The Women Environmental Program is a women-founded, women-led organization, a CSO, that exists at the intersect of championing advocacy for gender equity and gender equality, climate change, climate action, and environmental stewardship. Women Environmental Program is headquartered in Nigeria with offices across multiple African countries, including Burkina Faso, Tunisia, Kenya, and also offices in Canada and in the United States. So if you go to the next slide, please. So the case study here is really around the whole of community approach. If we go back to the raison d'etre for the existence of Women Environmental Program, the project is in Nigeria, and it cuts across the whole of Nigeria through multiple geopolitical zones. And what was the program? The program was sponsored by the EU and with contributions from Women Engage for a Common Future, and the Hyrick Ball Foundation, Christian Aid, and supported by NIMED, which is the Nigeria Meteorological Agency. Now, what it is programs that are given through radio and phone apps bi-weekly in 6 radio stations. And what it does is it's a two-way thing. One way is to provide climate advisory, seasonal advisories, seasonal alerts, and climate information for climate awareness to farmers and farmer groups. And at the same time, the other way is to collect information, feedback, and data from those who receive the information. Now, why is this important? From a Nigerian standpoint, I will tell you this, that agriculture makes up about 25% of Nigeria's GDP. From that perspective, within agriculture itself, more than 85% of farmers in Nigeria are smallholder farmers. Now, these are family-owned farms that are less than 1 hectare on the average. And to that point, 13% of those are women-led. Now, another thing to understand and to accept here is the fact that in Nigeria, there is an intensive and extensive application of chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizer in the agricultural practices. So what that does is that exacerbates any effect of climate change already on the environment. So part of this program is to create an awareness and to create the education that you can actually farm without these intensive and extensive elements, that you can actually get produce and have production from the farms without these intensive applications of pesticides and chemicals through the use and promotion, and the use of organics. If I take a step back, this actually began in the second half of 2024, right? And that is echoing my point, right? In the second half of 2024, and it is continuing. And the intention is to actually grow it, because with the data that's being collected, there's multiple things that can come from that. There can actually be the utilization of that data to create buckets of knowledge and buckets of application of that knowledge. As we go forward, artificial intelligence can also play a part in utilizing that data for the country as a whole to be proactive. The Nigerian, the farmers, the smallholder farmers, as they were, today are not served well by agricultural extension services in the context of information and of learning. So this creates a base, right? And a platform to be able to take that and to grow that for further application and to use overall. If we go to the next slide. So if you look at a map of Nigeria, you can see where the radio stations are located, right? That promote this program and broadcast these programs on a bi-weekly basis on the specific days in the regions that they are located. So that's what the program is. That's what the program is doing. And from a web perspective, I think part of what needs to go from here is the fact that this in and of itself is an adaptation of what we've heard from the very beginning of this program, but it is locally adapted to meet the needs, right? It's a whole of community approach. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Igbobo. As colleagues attending in person here witnessed that the sky confirmed all your statements. Now we come back to Madame Moa Cortobias for final remarks, please.
Thank you. And it was by no means my personal intent to dominate this panel in this session. But we do have amazing information experiences coming in from all over our country offices, and we're very happy to be able to share some of that learnings here today. But very inspired by all the presentations that have been made before in these excellent examples. Yes, please seat yourself so that you don't need to be wet by the rain. The Amazon is treating us to all of its different climates and weathers today. I will go through this presentation very quickly because I already think that many of these points have been raised. But I wanted to stress that as Save the Children, we really think that the learnings, or when we look at the spectrum of what communities need to be able to respond to climate change, it's equally important that we think about the long-term perspective through adaptation, for example, as also supporting communities in anticipatory action, as I was speaking to before, to respond to the shocks that are happening continuously so that their resilience isn't eroded with every shock, but we can actually focus both on protecting the immediate, protecting communities and children and youth from the immediate shocks that they are facing, while also building resilience so that these shocks have less impact in the future. So the study that I presented before was a key input to this one. I just want to say that. But I wanted to speak a bit more on kind of the findings that we have on how can we also include children and adolescents and youth in adaptation work. Next slide, please. So this study really focused on locally led adaptation. And this builds on the locally led adaptation principles, the 9 principles that have been developed by many different organizations together. And we wanted to look at what are the practices and drivers of success, what shared learnings do we have, and how can we feed that into our own work as Save the Children to be more supportive of local communities and local actors. And we also wanted to present recommendations both to local authorities, to national authorities, to civil society, etc. So how we can better support child-centered locally adaptation. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, so the research questions were basically what good practices and enablers can we see in our programs, and how can we what do we see in terms of gender responsive locally led adaptation? What do we see in terms of key consideration opportunities for conflict and fragile settings? And what can we learn also from the locally led anticipatory action that we have seen? Next one, please. But I think that before we move into the results, it's really important to dig down a bit more in what do we actually mean when we say child-centered. And what we try to develop is a framework for actually different levels of child inclusion. And I think that this has been brought forward in the many different excellent examples that we have seen before. So, I mean, I think child exclusive is kind of self-evident what we mean with that. That is basically when children's needs, voices, and solutions are not considered in any shape, way, or form. Usually that is the modus operandum and how climate work is developed. And when we think about child sensitive, it's when we acknowledge children's needs, but they are treated more as beneficiaries, as the excellent colleague here from Malawi was saying, that first they were recipients of information, and that would be, of course, acknowledging their needs, but not necessarily involving them as agents of change. And I think that when we move to child-centered, this is where we put their needs and rights and perspectives at the core of adaptation. And then finally, we have what could be identified as child-led. And I think it's important to recognize that in many programs and many projects, we see a combination of these. So depending on the activity, depending on the component, the type of work, we will see some components that are child sensitive, some that are centered, and some that can be child-led. And it's also important to recognize that it's not always appropriate to have children leading on all components, but it is important to recognize when there are opportunities and spaces for them to lead and address structural inequalities and ensuring transparency and accountability. Next slide. Yes, you can go to the next slide. So what are some of the good practices that we saw? So thinking about maybe if we start with child sensitive, here we saw really interesting examples of embedding child responsive locally led adaptation practices into local government systems. Engaging youth and children in local councils and planning, for example. When we think about child centers, there were opportunities for creating space for children use voices to influence these different plans and strategies. We also leveraging our traditional practices and community structures to provide voice and spaces for dialogue with children and adolescents, and also using child-friendly engagement tools such as quizzes, music, art, and dance, for example. And as has been seen in the videos and as the colleague presented, there are excellent examples of how we can actually engage children through clubs and schools, really leading activities, and being entry points and agents of change, eco clubs, etc. But also supporting them in leading and taking part in child-led risk mapping in their communities. Thank you. So what are some of the recommendations that we could see from this? Well, for international actors, we would like to highlight the importance of really providing increased, flexible, multi-year funding to youth and women-led organizations. We know that there is a gap in the quantity of funding that goes to these organizations, but it's also important to think about the quality of the funding. It's key to ensure that we support these decentralized climate finance mechanisms, such as local or Kenya's CCCF. We need to integrate and advocate for child and gender responsive indicators and targets into the adaptation and climate finance frameworks. And of course, scale the models that we know are working and the participatory approaches that we know are working. For national and local governments, to embed child and gender responsive adaptation into national and subnational policies, plans, and budgets, prioritize social protection measures and gender responsive services and resources, establish and support supportive community resilience committees and groups, integrate climate education in school curricula and also extracurricular clubs. And finally, ensure that we have the data that we need to actually be able to see the differentiated impacts by collecting sex, age, and disability disaggregated data. Next slide, please. And what can we do as CSOs and local organizations, actors? Well, we can work through self-help groups, community groups, youth clubs, and use them as trusted channels for adaptation and anticipatory action. We can capture and elevate child and youth experiences through participatory methods. We can build coalitions of youth, women's group, and CSOs to influence local climate policy agendas and amplify community voices. And of course, strengthen accountability by monitoring and adaptation spending and supporting communities to track funding against their priorities. Slide. Thank you. That was it. We also have this in digital, if anyone would like to download the report, and I'm happy to share more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Cortibius. So we come to the end of this side event. I had a few key points as conclusion, but I found them also in your recommendations and also presentations by other distinguished speakers. So thank again for your participation. Thanks to organizers of this event. And we really appreciate your partnership. I close the side event. Thank you. Bye.